So I just got back from the screening for Man on the Run in the theaters. Now, first order of business, happy belated birthday to Yoko Ono, who turned 93 yesterday, February 18th. Filming this about 9:45 at night, so I enjoyed seeing this in the theaters. Man on the Run, I'm looking forward to also seeing it again streaming, just to see how it's going to look on my screen, but it's really nice to see it on a big screen, having had attended that tonight. It's going to be my first impressions, so this is very unscripted. This is very much just off the cuff, whatever I can think of, right? First of all, I thought very well done. I thought it was definitely a step up from Wingspan. Wingspan is more a love letter to Linda, and this still is in some ways, but, quite a few things. First of all, we actually get to hear from the members themselves off screen. Nobody appears on screen on the documentary as far as current footage. It's all archival footage. Of course, it starts with the breakup of the Beatles. You get a little snippet of the early days of the Beatles, a quick run through up until 1969, their breakup. And then, after that point, okay, the story begins. Paul does include the McCartney and Ram albums, but I get that it's a general audience. You have to kind of bring them up to speed, especially if you're introducing it to new people, with the documentary itself. The footage is amazing. A lot of great footage that we haven't seen before. There's one song, I'm trying to honestly remember the name of it right now, not On The Way, that's McCartney too, but one of the songs that Paul is performing, it's kind of a demo that's never been released before. On My Way. I think it's called On My Way. Folks, feel free to correct me in the comments, those that have seen the film or, caught that part a little bit better. He's filming that part probably mid-70s on like a Steadicam. The audio is great. The Steadicam, it's very much the footage of the 70s itself. So, who knows? We may see that again one day, officially released. And like I said, the footage is amazing. You certainly get a lot of stuff that you have seen before if you're a hardcore fan, but there's definitely some stuff out there that never got to see before. There's a lot in the archives that, being released. I've also ordered the soundtrack album, so that should be coming probably end of this month, beginning of March, sometime along that, so that'll be a separate review. I also recently picked up the Wings book, Story of a Band on the Run. I actually have it over there. I don't feel like getting it right now. I should have put it up, but I'll do a separate review of that, and that's probably going to go a lot more in-depth as far as what the movie didn't cover itself. But again, well worth it. I'm going to say I'll give it an A-. I think nearly perfect. I think that there's a little bits here and there, like for instance, when Paul's talking about, of course, his particular preferred lineup being the mid-70s lineup, Wings Over America lineup. He goes, you may agree with me, you may not. The Back to the Egg lineup, we get to hear from Lawrence, we get to hear from Steve Hawley, Lawrence Juber, folks like that. I think it gets a little bit of a short shrift, though, in my personal view. That's probably my favorite lineup. I'm a little bit biased in that way. But certainly everybody gets to, gets their voices heard on the documentary, whether they're still with us or not. Henry McCulloch, Jimmy McCulloch, and Denny Lane, and of course Linda all being no longer with us. But you hear from other folks. You hear from Denny Sywell. You hear from Jeff Britton. Let me see who else we hear from, Steve Hawley, Lawrence Juber. I feel like I might have been forgetting somebody else. Oh, Joe English. Yeah, Joe English, you actually do get to hear from him as well, at least with audio clips mixed with the archival footage. Really well done, I think. And of course, if you stay after the credits, I hope you did, because there's a nice little interview with Paul and the director. Now, that's current Paul now, 83, going to be 84 in June. Talking with the director, and they bring up a couple nice items. Robbie the Robot from the 1979 tour, he lives, folks, he lives. He's actually right there. Paul's kind of driving him. Robbie the Robot is kind of an R2-D2-like figure that was on the Wings 1979 concerts for Kampuchea, and I think might have been part of the tour as well. But, very much of that time, Who knows, maybe Paul will feel like he wants to resurrect that for a nice little bit on tour. Hey, might be nice, right? We get a couple other items from the archives that they bring out. The guitar that Paul used for Wings Over America during the acoustic set. You get a couple jackets, one from the Paul McCartney 1973 TV special, black jacket with silver stars on it. The other jacket is kind of like a red, yellow, and greenish kind of jacket from 1972 tour. They had the pants and the jacket, and the director says, "Oh, try on the jacket." So Paul did. It was able to somewhat fit. I mean, he's a little, he's not quite as skinny as he used to be. None of us are. None of us. Myself definitely included. As you were when you were 25, 30, whatever the age was, when he was doing the tour, early 30s, I think, or around the age of 30. But that was kind of nice to see. So, a nice little human moment for that. They bring out the passport that Paul used during the decade. It does not have the Japanese stamp because the government of Japan never stamped him in for the 1980 January bust. And you know what? So he never technically entered the country, so they were able to let him go. It was good. He could have faced 7 years hard labor, but luckily that didn't turn out that way. Also, I think I like the fact that it kind of acknowledges John and Paul in tandem during the 70s. So versus Wingspan, this is this reason they kind of give, okay, towards 1979, 1980, at least according to Paul, if you're going totally by his story, that, hey, we were getting tired of it, or I was getting tired of it, another tour, another album, I released McCartney 2. But of course, the death of John had to impact that as well. I mean, suddenly John Lennon's passing, every celebrity now has bodyguards, has many more bodyguards than they did before that time. So I kind of like how he does acknowledge that. Some of the insecurities, I think he's very honest with the documentary. I think he's a lot more candid now in later years versus earlier years. If he would have done this in the 70s or 80s or even from 25 years ago, from 2001, I think now he's just a bit more candid. Like, yeah, whatever. A couple F-bombs here or there, and that's totally fine by me. I try not to do them too often on the channel here, but, you get kind of a warts and all, with the some of the drug busts and stuff like that. Again, a much more complete picture of Wings as a band, and I think hopefully that'll prompt some rediscovery. Towards the end of the documentary, you kind of get to see some family photos of Paul with Linda and the kids a bit more grown up. One clip shows Paul wearing a press-to-play t-shirt, so I'm going to guess that's circa 1986 or so. And there's definitely some 80s footage mixed in. There's one point where one of the interviewers asked Paul something about, do you think, you were as good as, Wings were not as good as the Beatles or something along those lines. And Paul just kind of goes, no. That clip is definitely taken from the Paul McCartney special from 1986. So that's pretty much my apologies, everybody. Had to take care of the memory card. See, the memory was actually full. Just like memory almost full. And for the record, yes, I deliberately left that in just to show, hey, things don't always go perfect. So there. And I remember where I was last speaking about before the card itself abruptly ended. So Paul was wearing a press-to-play t-shirt, which is kind of interesting to see. But this also gave me, some time to really just figure out a couple other things to add real quick as I'm wrapping things up. Some folks I was surprised to hear from in the documentary. Sean Lennon was definitely nice to hear his voice of the documentary. Mick Jagger was another one. It was actually kind of nice to hear him in a couple clips here or there. Sort of comparing, being the leader or the co-leader of a big band. Of course, the Rolling Stones have never broken up. That's a misnomer that keeps going around every couple of years. They've never officially broken up. They've lost members. They've gone periods without doing music. But that's an aside. They've never broken up. Wings, although did, April of 1981. So I also like how the documentary does go through basically the entire timeline. Again, they do play a few songs from Back to the Egg towards the end, and McCartney 2. Only with a little luck from the rehearsals footage really gets heard, which is kind of a shame. I think they could have fit in I've Had Enough. I don't know if there's some other director's cut out there, I was describing the footage as well at the end of the film. Now, supposedly exclusive to theaters, but again, I'm really hoping we get a physical product from this. I hope so. That hasn't happened with one hand clapping. So I don't know if that's going to happen with, with this film in particular. In particular, as far as the theater attendance, now compared to a couple years ago with one hand clapping, this Man on the Run, this showing was actually pretty well packed. I was very pleasantly surprised. There was a lot of people there. So that was kind of nice to see. Again, for any local folks to the area, that particular theater I went to sadly is closing as of this Sunday. By the time you're watching this, it probably will have already closed down. I think they're putting some sort of condo complex there or something like that, building something else. It's been bought out by a developer because of there's an issue with the Showcase Cinemas. And it's a really a shame because since I've been back in this area, I've gone to see quite a few movies at that theater. I thought they were doing well. I thought it was quite nice to have that experience. You never know what the future is going to bring as far as media. And I can't wait to do another review with a home viewing. I want to see how it shows in the home viewing experience. I'm sure I'll be able to pause a lot more. The first time you watch something, you're basically trying to just absorb everything as the product itself. Sometimes if I go back to watch something a second, third time, etc., that's where you start to pick up other little things that you may have missed the first time around. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So that's my review, an A- for the film itself. Again, not absolutely perfect in every sense, but really great, really amazing. If you can catch it in the theaters, I think it's going to be running on Sunday the 22nd, at least in some areas. You may want to check all available websites. February 27th, it comes to Amazon Prime for streaming. So that's my review of it. So I just wanted to get that out there as soon as I possibly could. Hope everybody's enjoying themselves, being safe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care, everybody.